Hello, everyone. My name is Neil Dhar. I am an online voice and accent communication coach. I have been working with multinational organizations like American Express, Barclays, Capgemini. I work with processes like Microsoft, AT&T, United Airlines, and I assist people in their corporate communication. I assist people clearing their IELTS exam and to help them overall achieve a better communication status when it comes to your soft skills, when it comes to client management, when it comes to your overall grooming of your English language communication. Today, we are going to get into chapter 2 of past continuous tense. If any of you have watched my previous video, we made a video on past continuous, and this would be the part 2 of it. So for anyone who is watching this video for the first time, uh, let me tell you something about tenses. There are three major kind of tenses, which are present, past, and future. What does tenses do? They actually tell when an activity has occurred. So what is past continuous? Normally or basically, it is an activity which is in continuous format, which has happened in the past. I did give a brief introduction on past continuous tense in my previous video. Do watch it and subscribe to the channel. And today we're going to go into part 2. Let's dive in deeper into it and understand what it is. I'll be quickly sharing my screen. Okay, let's have a look at past continuous. For people watching this video for the first time, past continuous, once again, is an activity which has happened in the past in continuous format. I was playing, he was doing, she was doing, it was doing, we were speaking, you were speaking, they were speaking. Okay, moving on. Make pictures to match to sentence. Girl was talking on the phone. Okay, which picture does it match? It matches with C. He was living in Paris. It would match with picture A, as we can see the Tower of Paris, the Eiffel Tower. They were walking in the street, matches with B. Okay, we discussed this rule in a previous video. For people watching this video for the first time, let's have a look at how we use was and where and what exceptions do we have. I was playing, you were reading, he was painting, she was watching, it was snowing, we were running, they were reporting. Okay, so to break down the rule and make it really easy for you, whenever we have plural like we or they, we use were. Whenever we have singular, like I or he or she, we use was. However, there is one tricky exception in the singular rule. Anytime you use you, we use were. Now, you is also a singular form or singular subject. We use were. This is the only exception. So if the subject is singular, we use was, you being the only exception where we use were. If the subject is plural, we use were. Now, let's look at something, an object, a non-living subject. It was snowing. Okay. Now, is snowing something singular in nature or plural in nature? Let's ask ourselves. Now, snowing is an event which has happened. So you cannot count, this is another activity we will cover later. You cannot count how much did it snow, you're not a scientist to measure the snowfall or the exact amount of snow grains which was falling. So when it's something huge in number, we normally put it as a singular object in the English language. So it was snowing, it was raining, it was windy. Okay, moving on. Match picture to the sentence. Okay, Jane was not reading, she was writing. Which one would it match? We can see picture A is the best fit for it. Next one. We were not walking in the forest, we were at the beach. C is best match. Carlo was not swimming, he was diving. B would be the best match. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at some negative forms. I was playing, you were reading, he was painting, she was watching, it was raining, We were waiting. They were laughing. Okay. Now, negative form, which means we're not doing an activity. So I was not playing. You were not reading. He was not painting. She was not watching. It was not raining. We were not waiting. They were not laughing. Okay. Practice negative past continuous. Okay. In the previous activity, we practiced the positive form. Let's practice the negative form. Theo was not doing his homework. The positive would be Theo was doing his homework. I was not listening to you. Okay. So what we would go ahead and do is match some words on the top mentioned in red to the ones in the sentence, the appropriate word. So do is already used. The next one I mentioned, I was not listening to you. Okay. Next one, Neil. That's again my name. Neil was not helping me prepare dinner. Parker and Ellen were not sleeping at a hotel. Okay. Next, again, let's try and use the words on the top in negative form, in continuous format. I was at home. I was not studying in the library. He was not walking the dog in the park. The sun was not shining. Aubrey and Eva were not wearing skiing clothes or ski clothes. Okay. Make positive sentences negative. Okay. The cat was sleeping in the armchair. The negative would be the cat was not sleeping in the armchair. She was brushing her teeth. Okay. Now, I discussed this in the last lesson. So let's understand the difference between, let's look at sentence number 10. She was brushing her teeth is past continuous. Past continuous would be an activity which has happened for a certain duration. What would be the past simple of it? She brushed her teeth. So that's the difference between past simple and past continuous. Past continuous would depict an activity which is happening for a duration. For more details on this, please watch my video number 1 on past continuous tense. My computer was making a strange noise. Okay, negative form. My computer was not making a strange noise. They were living in New Zealand. They were not living in New Zealand. Moving on, make negative sentences looking at the picture. They were not playing basketball today. He was not taking a shower. It was not raining yesterday. He was not painting his room. The positive form would be they were playing basketball. He was taking a shower. It was raining yesterday. He was not painting his room. Next, match picture to sentences. Okay, we can see all of them are negative sentences. Let's try and match with the picture. I wasn't watching TV would match with A. Alex wasn't reading his book would match with C. Craig and Lisa weren't doing their homework would match with B. Okay. Negative sentences, contraction. Okay. What are contraction? Contractions are when we contract the word. When do we use contraction? Normally we use contraction when we speak. Normally we do not use contraction when we write. Okay. Without a contraction, I was not listening to the radio. With the contraction, I wasn't listening to the radio. So the contraction of was not is wasn't. Okay. Negative sentence contraction. We usually use the contraction in spoken English. As I mentioned, while we speak, we normally use more contraction. Now, there is no hard rule that you cannot use non-contraction sentences while you speak. As I mentioned before, the word usually. Usually when we speak, we use contraction. Usually when we write, we do not use contractions. We often use contraction in written English. Spoken, I wasn't listening to the radio. Written, we weren't skiing, we were sailing. Written, She was not flying to Bucharest. She was flying to Budapest. Okay. As we see, we weren't skiing, we were sailing. So we're using contraction in written format here. Once again, there is no hard rule that you cannot use it. Normally, when we speak, we use contractions. While writing official communication, we do not use contraction. Okay, moving on. Here are a couple of examples of contraction. I wasn't driving, you weren't writing, he wasn't drawing, she wasn't watching, it wasn't raining, we weren't laughing, they weren't studying. Again, we apply the same rule for singular subject. We use was and negative would be wasn't. For plural subject, we use were or weren't. You being the only exception. In singular subject, where we use were, or in negative form, we use weren't. Okay. Negative sentence contractions. There is only one possible contraction for past continuous negative. Peter wasn't reading the newspaper. Remember, there are two possible contractions for present continuous negative. Peter isn't reading the newspaper. Peter is not reading the newspaper. Understand the difference? When we are talking about present continuous and we're talking about negative, we can simply add an apostrophe s and complete the sentence, and or we can use isn't reading. But when we're talking about past tense and we're talking about negative, we cannot use this apostrophe s. We have to use the contraction. Peter wasn't reading the newspaper. Okay. All right. Let's make sentences with no contraction and contraction. Let's look at the example to have an idea. I was not playing. I wasn't playing. You were not opening. You weren't opening. He was not growing. He wasn't growing. She was not biking. She wasn't biking. It was not raining. It wasn't raining. We were not sending. We weren't sending. They were not writing. They weren't writing. So was not, were not, was not, was not. The contraction is wasn't, weren't, as you can see the example. Okay. Make positive sentence negative. Here's a test how to make this positive sentence into negative. Okay. Give it a try. The first one. He was reading a book on the subway. Negative. He wasn't reading a book on the subway. Positive. The wind was blowing last night. The negative form, the wind wasn't blowing last night. Tyler and Dean were preparing sushi at home. That's a Japanese dish. So this is a positive form. The negative would be Tyler and Dean weren't preparing sushi at home. 16. The neighbor's dog was howling yesterday afternoon. Negative. The neighbor's dog wasn't howling yesterday afternoon. Okay. We were traveling by bus to Beirut. That's the name of a place. Negative form would be we weren't traveling by bus to Beirut. Okay, next. Austin and Georgia were sitting in an expensive restaurant. That's the positive form because they're sitting in a restaurant. Negative would be when they would not be sitting. So the right sentence would be Austin and Georgia weren't sitting in an expensive restaurant. William and I were going to football practice. William and I weren't going to football practice. Okay. Just a quick tip out here. Whenever we talk about a third person or a second person and it talk about yourself. So let's say my friend's name is John and I say, John and me are going to the movie. So that is incorrect. Whenever you're referring to yourself, you use I for this example. William and I were going to football practice. Next one. He was studying for a science exam. He wasn't studying for a science exam. Okay. Practice, negative, past continuous. We need to use the words on the top to fit in the sentence, and we need to make it negative, past continuous. Okay. All right. Number 21. We already see a word has been used. He wasn't smoking a cigarette. He stopped smoking years ago. He wasn't smoking. Smoking is a continuous activity. When you light a cigarette, it takes 2-3 minutes or sometimes more, depending on what you smoke. So he wasn't smoking a cigarette. He stopped smoking years ago. If I want to say it in a positive way, he was smoking a cigarette. I'm not saying smoking is positive, but I'm just talking about grammar. He was smoking a cigarette. Number 22. No, I wasn't doing my homework. I'll do it now. 23. Don't you remember? You weren't walking with us. You were driving in your car. Now we are using weren't out here is because we are using you. If you remember, the only exception in singular subject is you. So we use were. In this case, negative, so we use weren't. Don't you remember you weren't with us? You were driving in your car. He wasn't looking at the traffic. He crossed the road and the car hit him. Next, number 25. Yesterday, James wasn't working. He was at the beach. 26. Today, it is sunny, but yesterday, the sun wasn't shining. I prefer the weather today. 27. Last year, we weren't taking English lessons. We were taking French lessons. Okay, now let's try and make it positive. Last year, we were taking English lessons. We were taking French lessons. Now, this sentence would also be correct grammatically, but logically doesn't make sense. If you watch my first video, I did mention a couple of times the right use of grammar. Also, we need to understand the sentence also needs to make some logic. So last year, we weren't taking English lessons. We were taking French lessons. Okay. Now, if I say today it is sunny, but yesterday the sun wasn't shining, I prefer the weather today. Now, if I say today it is sunny, but yesterday the sun was shining, I prefer the weather today. Grammatically, the sentence is absolutely correct, but logically doesn't make sense. If yesterday was sunny and today is sunny, why would you prefer it today? You'd only prefer it today because yesterday the sun wasn't shining, and today it is shining. Okay. Number 28. This week I started eating healthy food because my mom told me I wasn't eating fruits and vegetables. Okay. Yesterday, Gary was at the beach. Okay. Gary was not cleaning his car. He was swimming in the sea. Let's try sentence number 30. Gary was not working at the office. He was sitting on his beach towel. 31. Gary was not talking on the telephone. He was listening to music. Okay. We are all making positive continuous tenses out here. Okay. Now, 32. Gary was not reading the newspaper. He was looking at a magazine. Practice negative past continuous. Okay. Chris wasn't joking. He is serious. We need to use the word on the top. I use joke out here. So what would be the continuous format? Joking. Chris wasn't joking. He's serious. Now, once again, let's get back to sentence making logic. If I say Chris was joking, he's serious. These two sentences do not match. They do not make sense. So I'll say Chris wasn't joking. He's serious. Also, the activity says make negative past continuous. They weren't using their computer because the computer was broken. We weren't eating pasta. It was pizza. I wasn't telling you a lie. It was the truth. Okay. Make negative sentences using contraction. We did discuss contraction before. If you want to know about it more, you can just go, skip back the video and you would be able to hear contractions again. Okay. Anytime you want to go ahead and understand what we discussed before, or anytime you're not able to match things, you can always skip back, play back, and we have already covered it in the beginning part of this lesson. Okay, make negative sentences. He wasn't eating his soup. So this is an activity for you. we need to make negative sentences. Number 38, the student wasn't listening to the teacher. 39, they weren't having lunch at the hotel. 40, Karen and Albert were talking photographs. I'm sorry, Karen and Albert weren't taking photographs at the zoo. 41, they weren't using the coffee machine. 42, Robert wasn't riding a horse last weekend. Okay, make positive or negative sentences. Here is a choice given to you. Use anything that you want. You can make positive ones, you can make negative ones. But do remember, this is the real test. You need to understand the sentence should also make logic. Okay, number 43. He wasn't walking to work. He took a bus. Now, if I say he was walking to work, he took the bus. Now, again, grammatically correct, the sentence doesn't make sense. So he wasn't walking to work, he took the bus. 44, it wasn't sunny today, it was raining. We use this word from the top. 45, can you please repeat that? I wasn't listening to you. Mary wasn't taking photos, she was making a film. Okay, make negative sentences. Once again, this is for you. Look at the sentence and make something negative in the past. He wasn't knocking at the door. Number A. Positive would be he was knocking on the door. B. The bear wasn't eating a fish. C. I wasn't living in the house. D. The baby wasn't crying last night. Okay, just a quick tip, bear. A lot of us mispronounce bear and pronounce it as beer, which is an alcoholic beverage. Okay, so bear and beer. Okay. In this case, we're talking about bear, which is an animal. So the bear wasn't eating a fish. Okay, friends, this is all we have for today's lesson. We're coming to an end. We would continue our journey into past continuous tense and look further into it and have. My idea is that we cover past continuous tense completely so that once we're done with the slides, we should have mastery over past continuous tense. This will actually help us to improve our communication. No longer we would have to face a challenge in which we don't know which tense to use and how to use it properly. Okay, do subscribe to this channel and do keep watching this series. I will be continuing this journey with past continuous tense so that when we speak, we are able to speak confidently. Once again, this is video number 2 or part 2 of past continuous tense. We do have a part 1. I would really encourage you to watch that video as well before you switch or subscribe to this video. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. This is once again Neil here. I am a voice and accent coach. It was a pleasure interacting with you. Hope to see you all in the next slide. Take care. Have a great day ahead. God bless you.